was up next and they laughed at them. So I didn't say shit, I just backed it up. But we'll see who gets...
What's going on? It's your boy Aggro, and we're back at it with another Call of Duty Mobile video. And like I promised, we're going to be going over the sensitivity and controls. Now that I've had the game for a while, I've played in this menu quite a bit, pretty much constantly, to be quite honest. So I know the highs and the lows of everything and kind of figuring everything out and what will best help you as a new player, because I remember as a new player, even coming from PubgM Mobile and having all that experience, these controls and what they did exactly were still very confusing for me. And I just don't feel like there's a video on YouTube that fully in-depth explains it well enough. Now, the first topic on the discussion board today is going to be aim assist. Now, why I have aim assist off, I'll actually turn it back on, because this is what I recommend for you guys to do. If you're a brand new player and this is your first day playing the game, play with aim assist on. It's going to help you. Now, as you progress and you want to look into getting into those higher skill brackets, whether it be getting into tier 2 scrims or getting into legendary or maybe just grinding for the leaderboards in general, I have found that if you turn aim assist off and then play for like a couple days and then turn it back on, it's absolutely phenomenal what it'll do for your aim, because you'll have to learn a new way of how to aim and not rely on the aim assist. And then when you come back to turning it on, it's practically like aimbot. So a couple things about aim assist in this game. It's kind of bugged. It'll help you 90% of the time, but there are that 10% of the time where it's going to really hinder you. And it's either going to lock onto their foot if they're by another player. So if you have a cluster of players, sometimes you will mess up with your aim and you'll lock onto like their foot when you're transitioning targets. And another thing is, if someone's on a head glitch, it can be kind of tricky to pull them off if you just immediately try to aim directly on them, but you miss. It'll pull a little bit to the left sometimes, I've noticed. So that's why I feel like playing with aim assist off really teaches you how to aim. And then when you have aim assist back on, it really helps that recoil stay directly on target. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is quick run from prone. Why is quick run from prone so important to have on in this game? And it's basically for drop shotting. So when you drop to the ground in this game, or once you've learned how to master the movement in order to drop to the ground while shooting, getting back up from that is so life or death. So this will really help with that. So instead of pressing your crouch button twice to stand back up fully and then run away, you can basically just move your thumb position down to the bottom of the screen, swipe all the way up really quickly, and your character will actually just sprint out of there. And that's so helpful, and I feel like it's absolutely necessary if you feel like drop shotting. Now, fixed right fire button, that's basically just so that you can hip fire when you have your controls set to hip fire, and we'll go into that a little bit more in depth in the controls video on why I have hip fire and ADS enabled now, because I've actually finally fine-tuned my settings and controls, I feel like. And that's basically all that does. Now, joystick auto sprint, I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, you can correct me in the comments below, but I'm pretty sure that's just where you swipe up on the joystick and you swipe up to a desired spot and it auto sprints for you. Now, going down, I've played with these ADS settings a ton. I've played with every single one of them besides double tap, because I don't know, I just feel like that's silly. But I've used hybrid. Now, the reason hybrid I tried is because when you do tap to hold ADS, you can actually transition targets quicker. So if there's like 3 or 4 guys standing in front of you, you can swap to those targets with a quicker ADS with tap and hold. Now, the reason I'm back on tap to ADS is because, like I mentioned before, I am back using the one tap ADS and the tap to hold. So it's kind of both. Now, I use tap because I want to be able to hold an angle, so whenever I press that specific scope button, I only want to press it one time, and I want to be able to hold that angle and not have to worry about anything else. And all I have to worry about is controlling recoil and moving. Now, my normal ADS is still tap to hold, of course, because if you're playing as a one-tap ADS player, it basically just has to be. Now, display left fire button, I have that on because, like I said, I'm using both the fire buttons. And we'll go into that more in the next video in the controls section. But I just want to go over the general basics of the settings. Now, slide, I use tap to crouch while sprinting. I don't see hold being that important because as soon as you press slide, you want your fingers to be doing something else, like jumping or moving or helping control recoil on the left side of the screen or right side of the screen. Wherever you put your crouch, I just feel like tap is just obviously more logical in that situation. I have always sprint on because, like I mentioned with the drop shotting, you want to be able to get up from the ground very, very quickly. I have experimented with gyroscope. I am a gyroscope player in PubG Mobile, and I feel like it really is necessary in PubG Mobile to help you control recoil. I tried the same thing in this game. I know some people have immense practice with this, and they do very well. One of those being Jokester. And I tried it, and I just don't really like it because I feel like in this game, gyroscope is more tailored towards helping you actually aim instead of controlling recoil. Now, who knows? I could just be a bot, and maybe I'm just not used to it. But for now, we're going to keep that off. Camera FOV, if you're having a hard time hitting your shots consistently, I highly suggest you play with this setting. I've played with it all the way down. I feel like everything's too cramped. I have no spatial awareness. I've played with it all the way at the very top end. I feel like my aim is just off, and I don't know, I can just see too many things. So I keep it at 60. I haven't actually done an in-depth study as to whether the FOV actually changes the character size or the hitbox size. So I'm sure Hawksnest has done something on this. I don't know. I'll reach out to Elijah and see kind of what's going on with that. Or I'll just do my own testing to see if I can get a result for you guys. If you do know, please post in the comment section below. But I feel like 60 is probably the perfect medium for me. Reset weapon aim. I turned this on. I turned it off. I couldn't really notice what it was doing, so I just left it off. If you do know what it does, put it down in the comment section below. Now, I do play on medium graphics because I have heard I don't know if it's a confirmed rumor, but that you can see through smoke sometimes. I don't really get into smoke fights too often, so I don't really think that'd be a reason to use it. I just do it because I don't want my battery to die super, super quick, and the graphics still look pretty awesome in this game. And coming from PC, we're the kind of guys that'll have a 2080 Ti and turn our graphics down on low all the time anyway, so it's just kind of what I'm used to. Now, I've played with the color modes. Realistic, dynamic, standard. It's not really like PUBG. I haven't noticed too much of a difference. I don't really think it's going to make or break your game. Now, going into sensitivity, this is what I've played with an absolute ton. I have a ton of experience in this menu. Now, rotation mode, fixed speed. I feel like fixed speed is good for all the newer players. If you're an extremely advanced mobile player, and I'm talking like you've been playing for like 5 years, 4 years, even maybe 2 to 3 years on mobile games, speed acceleration can benefit you. But you have to have very good precision movements with your fingers and know exactly how much you need to swipe to actually enable acceleration. But for 90% of us, I'll say fixed speed, including myself. I tried speed acceleration. I'm not at that threshold of being able to do that in a panic situation, so I went back to fixed speed. Sensitivity switch. This should be gradually switched while ADSing. I don't know why it's at switch while opening ADS. That's absolutely horrible, and it'll disrupt your game immensely. I think it was because I was working on trying to get the Facebook account to actually sync with my profile picture so I can have a custom icon. So far, we haven't had any luck with that. I think I have to delete the cache on my phone. Who knows? That's another video. But that should always be on gradually switch while ADSing. So if you notice that it's off, make sure to put it on gradually switch. It'll help your game an absolute ton. You will hit all of your shots, I promise. Now, the thing with sensitivity is this camera sensitivity, the very first one, so your standard sensitivity, and this was super confusing to me when I first came into the game, is actually how you look around in the game. So it's your left, right, up, down movement when you're not aimed in with a gun whatsoever. I have mine on 70 because on 70, a general swipe of my thumb across the space in which I play in, I don't just take my thumb to the middle and then swipe it. I actually practiced and I noticed where my thumb was going in a normal gameplay, and then I took my measurements from there because that's obviously how you're going to play the game. 70 for me on an S9 Plus. and the area of which I swipe my thumb does a perfect 180 for me. I suggest you absolutely do the same. I tried turning this value all the way down to 50. I got pinched when people would come up behind me, or when people were sliding, I couldn't lock target quick enough, and I'd end up dying. Now, if you are very, very experienced, you can go above a 180, but in Call of Duty, I don't feel like it's really all that necessary to go above a 180, but you can. And I think our brightness has been turned down, so that's interesting. Now, under ADS, ADS is actually the scope in camera. So if you're playing tap ADS, not tap to hold, or I guess if you can use tap to hold. If you're using something other than one tap ADS, this will actually affect you. And this is just the camera movement when you're inside of a scope. Now, this I highly recommend you keep generally what you're comfortable with as far as locking onto target, so not too far off of what your actual camera sensitivity is. And then going down into firing sensitivity, you'll notice that my ADS sensitivity is a little bit lower than my firing sensitivity, because your ADS when firing, which I think is really weird in this game, because I've tried where it's actually way higher and then way lower on the camera and vice versa, and I find to keep them about the same is probably the sweet spot here. But your sensitivity changes when you start firing. You can either get slower, faster. I prefer it to be about the same. You don't want to set the value exactly the same, because when you start firing, it's actually going to slow your ADS down automatically. So bump it up a couple notches until you feel comfortable and you kind of feel like it's about the exact same. And then, of course, my standard sensitivity for firing is exactly the same as the camera. And then, like I said, gyroscope we don't really get into, because I don't play on gyroscope, because I don't feel like it's beneficial for controlling recoil, because most of the guns in this game really don't have a lot of recoil, especially when you compare it to PubG Mobile and like the AK from PubG Mobile or an EBR. The recoil in this game is practically non-existent. If this stuff does help you guys, be sure to smash that like button. Trust me, I will be doing an in-depth controller guide for what my controls actually are and how I set them up and the thought process behind it in order to do all the maneuvers that I do in the game. I'm trying to get my gameplay as fluid as possible to an actual controller player on a normal phone. Of course, I don't have an iPad yet. I will be getting an iPad here soon. Once we get an iPad, the gameplays are going to be smooth anyway, just because iPad has that awesome advantage. But for all the guys on a normal phone, I feel like this settings video is actually going to help you probably the most, because I know when I first started out, it was very hard to find a control video from someone that just played on a normal phone and not an iPad in Call of Duty Mobile. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to smash that subscribe button and smash that like button. And let me know what your sensitivities are down in the comment section below, because I know some of my friends play on crazy sensitivities where it's like 150. I personally don't benefit from that, so I felt like everyone else in the community could have another judgment to go off of. And I'm just going to play a little bit gameplay for you guys, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Lost the lead. Taking the lead. UAV recon ready for deployment.
Changing mag, cover me.
Chopper awaiting orders.
Changing mag! Reloading! Cover me!
UAV online. Friendly hunter-killer drone deployed.